Hello and welcome back. It's puzzle time with Sudoku Sleuth, and today we're playing Dutch Flatmates, Skyscrapers edition this time. Now, just a couple of things about the puzzle as we get into it. So, Dutch Flatmates is actually sort of like a twist on Dutch Whisper Lines as a variant from Flinty that I think we featured some of the puzzles on this channel previously. There's like a couple on there, I'm pretty sure. Let me have a quick look. Yeah, there's two of them that we featured previously. Now, kind of the irony, and I'm sure Flinty doesn't mind this, is that when I was looking at the highest rated difficult puzzles that were released in December that we missed out on, there was a Dutch Flatmates one, Skyscrapers, but this time by actually another constructor, GoodCity. And it just, like, it's around the same rating. I mean, Flinty's got one called Dutch Whispers at 96%, and I guess marginally better than 96% is Dutch Flatmates Skyscrapers from GoodCity. So looking forward to it, but equally, once you see the grid, you're going to be feeling a little bit intimidated. So I guess because we're talking about skyscrapers today, and we'll explain that when I get into the rule set, you can see, unlike some of the previous thumbnails for Dutch Flatmates, this is very much about skyscrapers. I believe what you see there in the background is De Rotterdam, which is like a skyscraper complex that was just finished. You could guess where it is, Rotterdam. Now, I don't actually know if this is sort of true to life in the sense that there's a giant set of skyscrapers in the skyline and then just a whole bunch of low buildings. I can't imagine this is sort of what it actually looks like. Hopefully it doesn't anyway. I'm sure any Dutch viewers amongst you will probably give me a few tips around what it actually looks like. Right, let's take a look at the actual puzzle. Whoops, sorry, I was checking the fact that sort of GoodCity eked Flinty by just like, not enough to actually register as a decimal, really. Right, so Dutch Flatmates Skyscrapers by GoodCity, mentioned all of that. And we've got the following set of rules. So first one is normal Sudoku rules apply, so that means place the digits 1 to 9. There you go, in every row, in every column, and in every 3x3 box. Now, this is sort of the reference to Dutch Flatmates. If you haven't actually played this series, I really recommend that you do. So what I'll do is I'll link up there a card for you to click on, explore. I would say play one of the easier puzzles in the series that we featured previously before coming back and playing this one. If you haven't actually tried, I think Kropke was the easiest one that we featured. So definitely try that first. Right, so fives live in Dutch flats. So all fives in the grid must strictly have either a 1 directly above it and /or a 9 directly below it. So it can have both, but it doesn't need both. So if I give you an example here, I'm just going to make this up. If that happened to be a 5, either there is a 9 beneath it, or a 1 above it, or both. So this would be valid, this would be valid, and of course, having both would be valid. But what wouldn't be valid is having entirely different digits in place. You need to have at least either a 1 above it or a 9 beneath it. Now, skyscrapers, on the other hand, I think we've featured many of these on the channel before. What you have in here is each digit in the grid, that outside the grid, I should say, represents a skyscraper of the corresponding height. So clues outside the grid indicate how many buildings can be seen from that direction. And essentially, higher buildings will block that visibility. So how would I sort of explain that? If you take a look at, let's say, this 3, what it's saying is in this direction that the 3 is looking at, sort of right to left in the bottom in row 9, it can see 3 digits. It can see 3 skyscrapers. And essentially what it's saying is that, here, if I illustrate this, I could do 7, 8, 9 as an example. That would be totally fine. And you'd see the 7, you'd see the 8 because it's sort of, 8 floors high, slightly higher than the 7, and therefore you can see it. And then you'd see the 9 because it's 9 floors high, slightly higher than the 8, and you can see it. You wouldn't be able to see the 1-floor building behind it or the 2-floor building behind it. That's sort of the concept behind skyscrapers. Right. You can see we've got like nothing in the grid. Nothing. We've got a handful of skyscraper clues on the outside. If you're not put off by any of this, if you're not intimidated, link will be in the description down below as usual for you to play along. Now all that's left to do is for you guys to wish me good luck and see if I can actually solve this puzzle, and I restart the clock. So there is like very few things I know about Dutch flatmates. I mean, I only played 2 of them after all. One thing that I do know is if you think about the digit 5 at the top, wherever it may be, let's say it's here, I clearly can't have a 1 above it entirely off the grid. So wherever the 5 is in row 1, a 9 has to be directly beneath it. Otherwise, we've broken the Dutch flatmates rule. The similar thing happens in row 9 in that wherever the 5 may be, it has to have a 1 directly above it because, again, I can't have a 9 beneath it. That would be outside of the grid. So really, that's like the only thing that I know that might not come immediately to mind when you're thinking about this. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure that's helpful at all. What I'm thinking of is actually, let's just focus on skyscraper rules. In particular, I'm liking kind of where, I mean, take a look at these. There's clearly some sort of break in between these. Yeah, there's definitely a break in between these. Let's just talk about the 4s and 5s in rows 5 and column 5. Now, if you use the skyscraper rule, clearly I can't put a 9 in here because that would be the only building I can see and everything else will be lower regardless of how big it is. So these skyscraper clues means that at a minimum, the 9 digit is 4 cells away. Even if I place it in here and I go for the absolute maximum, that's only 3 buildings that the digit 4 can see. So essentially the 9, and maybe that's the way to go about it, the 9 cannot be in any of these cells. With the 5, the 9 cannot be in any of these cells, none of these cells, none of these cells. Essentially, the 9 now in rows 5 and column 5 is restricted to these 3 cells. And the only way I'm going to be able to satisfy all of these constraints between the 4s and the 5s is this has to be the 9. Second, I put a 9 in here. Where does 9 go in column 5 so that it doesn't break this 5 clue skyscraper or this 4 clue skyscraper? So the only place the 9 can be is in here. And now 9 cannot be in any of these cells. I'm actually very tempted to carry on with sort of using this for illustration. So 9 can't be anywhere on here for the 7, can't be anywhere in here for the 5, can't be anywhere in there for the 3. I'm going to just go around and do this reasonably quickly around the grid. It's just to block out where 9 can be. Well, 9 cannot be, I should say. And here's another example of that challenge that we have. 9, based on the skyscraper clues for column 6 and row 6, is restricted to these locations. Now, the second I place a 9 anywhere except this cell, I will break its counterpart, just like I did here with the 4s and 5s. So if I place a 9 in here, these are not 9, where can I place a 9 in column 7 so that it doesn't break the 7 skyscraper clue? And the answer is it doesn't. I can't duplicate it in the box. If I place it up here, the maximum number of buildings I can see would be 6. So the 9 has to be in there. And now none of these are 9s. Take a look at where 9 goes now in row 9. That's the only place a 9 can be. These are not 9s. There's a 9 somewhere in here. A 9, actually, I haven't finished coloring. The 9 couldn't be in any of these cells, otherwise, again, it would break the 5. So 9 is restricted to here. Nine's not there. 9 is not there, just Sudoku. 9 is in one of these 3 cells. Okay. Progress. Now, what did I say about... what I said earlier about if there is a 5 in row 1, it has to have a 9 beneath it. So essentially, we're saying none of these are 5s either. No, hang on, because that can be a 9. So none of these are 5s. But there's plenty of other opportunities for 5s. Okay, maybe too early to sort of jump onto Dutch flatmates. Let's just think about where 9 can be first. I'm not sure. Something else maybe I should just do, especially for the 7s and probably the 5s. We know that given the 9 is here, and essentially we need all of these buildings to be visible, same with the 7 up here, essentially, and actually the vertical one is going to be probably much more interesting, but I'll fill this in. Essentially, I have an ascending run of digits as such, so that, and it's almost like a thermometer basically. This is the smallest cell, and as I go up, this is the bulb, and as I go right on this thermometer, the digits have to ascend, and I've got the same thing, same thing up here. And I need every single one of these buildings to be visible to this 7 clue. Now, the reason I was saying that actually the vertical 7 is more interesting, the one in column 7 is more interesting, is where does 5 go? Because wherever 5 is, and let me just kind of remove the colors for a second. These are the only places the 5 can be. And you can see in all of them, I don't have a 9 beneath it, nor do I have a 1 above it. So technically, if I place a 5 in any of these cells, I will break the Dutch flatmate rule. And in fact, there are no 5s now in here. I have to have a 5 all the way down here in one of these 2 cells. If I place the 5 in here, I've broken, again, the Dutch flatmate rule, because I have a 9 above it. So neither do I have a 9 beneath it, nor a 1 above it. That's broken it. That's the 5, that's the 1. And I'm guessing that's probably going to force everything now. Yes, it is. That's 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. Lovely. This 7 tells me on this 5 that's got to be an 8 because, again, I've got a very similar constraint here in that all of these buildings have to be visible and these digits have to be essentially another thermometer that's ascending with a bulb here. I'm almost sort of like tempted to sort of draw this for you. Essentially, I have something that looks like this as a thermometer. But let's remove that. Let's just pencil mark what these numbers could be. That's a maximum of 5. That's a maximum of 4. I'm so glad we've made this much progress. I'll be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure I was actually going to get that far. So it's nice to see we actually are progressing. That's not an 8, just Sudoku, which removes a degree of freedom from this thermometer. This virtual thermometer, obviously. What else do we know? I suspect that I can probably figure out what this is, but let's just see if I've got anything else. We've got another thermometer here. That's essentially the same as this 5. So essentially what I have in here is up to 5, but not 5 anymore. So essentially this could have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. 3, 4, 5, 6, blah, 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 blah. Think of it again, another thermometer, except that's no longer a 5. That doesn't actually restrict this. This is a 5 or 6. This has to be higher. This has to be 6 or 7, because all of these have to be visible. It's clearly not an 8, it's already placed. And essentially, I have to restrict these. because that's a maximum of 6. Therefore, that cannot be a 6, and that cannot, that, you know what I mean. I think that's now the correct pencil marking. Now, I think I can probably apply the same trick that I did in here with the 5. If that's a 5, I don't have a 9 beneath it, nor a 1 above it. That is forced to be a 6. That is a 7. That is a 7. I have the same challenge here. If that's a 5, I don't have a 9 beneath it. In fact, actually, no, forget it, because I think I can have a 5 in here with a 1. So ignore what I was about to say. Essentially, I was going to say that the only place a 5 can be is in this cell in this box where there's a 9 beneath it. But that's not entirely true. Like I said, this could be a 5 with a 1 here. So ignore that. And now that looks correct. It hasn't removed the degree of freedom, though, in here. It has forced an 8 in there, though, for sure. Okay. Yes, that's the next one. So let me think out loud for a moment and I'll explain, essentially what I'm looking at for all of these is essentially I have kind of like a thermometer of some sort. In some cases, I have a degree of freedom because the 9 here is essentially 6 cells away from this 5 clue. So it's not exactly as strict as some of these thermometers, but it is still fairly strict. Now, the digit that is not visible, or the cell that is not visible in this 6-cell thermometer, the one that breaks this ascending order, is almost certainly this cell, because it's only as high as 3. And I'm trying to sort of even come up with an example where it's something else, and I think the answer will absolutely be no, because even in the best case scenario of 1, 2, 3, 4, as such, you can see by the time I'm here, I'm at 4, this cell will be invisible. This cannot be a visible cell. So what I have, is essentially a bunch of ascending cells, then this descending cell, and this can be as high as 8, unfortunately, but not 7, not 6, and not 5. So it's actually reasonably restricted, if such a thing exists. Then this cannot be, well, it's unfortunately back down to 6 and 7, so I need to remove the 8 as a degree of freedom if I can. That'd be lovely if I can. I'm not sure I can, though. But hang on, that is an 8. If I try and place an 8 anywhere else, so I can't place it in here, that's the 8 already pencil marked in box 9. If I place the 8 anywhere else, let's say here, then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings rather than 5. So that is forced, that's the 8. Which actually gives me an 8-9 pair here. I can't place an 8 there because, again, that would restrict me to whatever this digit is, plus the 8, plus the 9 somewhere up here. Only 3 buildings when I need to be able to see 5. So that's an 8-9 pair. And now I'm thinking that this is probably going to be helpful, given I have this run in here. Where does 6 and 7 go? Where does 5, 6, and 7 go? And I'm thinking, even if I put a 5 in here, I could do 5, 6, 7. No, I can't. That's a 5. 5, that's just placed. Because that can't be a 9, 8, and 9. That forces a 1 up here. You've got to have one of them. This is now from 2, 3, 4, and 6, and 7. And it's ascending. So that's the 6, that's the 7. This is 2, 3, 4. That's the run. That's the 5 buildings. You know what would be very helpful is for me to start keeping track of which of these have I actually solved. Let's think about the 3 briefly. So essentially, well, actually, I've placed the 1 in row 9, just Sudoku, eliminating everything except this cell. So that's the 1. I've got 2, 3, and 4 in here. But I can't have 4 visible building. This digit has to be higher than this cell. So this is 2, 3, 4. This is not 1, 2, 3, excuse me. This is 2, 3. This is 3, 4. And 6 and 7, you can see they're not in there. They're not in here. That's 6, 7. We need now a 5 in this box. Well, 5 is none of these cells. That's the 5. No 9 beneath it. That's an 8, 9. That's got to be a 1. That's a 2, 3, 4 run. That's an 8 with 1 of 2, 3, and 4. Lovely. Now, where was I going with all of this? What I wanted to say is it would be very helpful if I can keep track of which of these skyscrapers have I actually resolved. And I will probably recolor the grid in a moment, but I really do need to think more about some more 9s. Come on, Sleuth, let's just think. You see this 2 here, you'd be very tempted to think that's a 9, which would force a 5 in here, because wherever the 9 is in row 2, there's a 5 directly above it. So that's a very tempting combination, but the reality is there's tons of ways of solving this too, I suspect. I don't know. I'm not sure I want to go down this route just yet. What about this 4? Well, this 4 is easy. Is it? No. I was tempted to say there's a 1 in here, but no, the 1 can be there. No, I'm feeling a little bit lost. I need to sort of pause and think a bit more, I think. I think I was doing the right thing by thinking about 9s and eliminating where they could go in the grid. That was immensely helpful. And I feel like I need to do that a little bit more before I move on and go back to Dutch flatmates again. So if there is where can 5 be in this box? 5, let's genuinely ask that question. If I place a 5 in here, I've broken the puzzle. I can't place a 1 in here. I can't place a 9 in here. So 5's not there. 5 again can't be a 9, would force a 1 here. Plausible. I don't know about plausible. Possible. If I place a 5 in here, I could still have a 9. So I mean, in terms of locations for 5s, all of these seem to be candidates. I was thinking about the 5s to see if I can force the 9. Maybe the 2 clue is what I need. No, it isn't. 4 is actually quite helpful. Where is 8 in column 5? And the answer is it's not here, because I've already placed it in box 5, and it can only be in there. Any closer to the 4 clue, and I've broken the skyscraper clue. So essentially, I have a digit that's hidden by the 8, between the 8 and 9, and then I need to be able to see all of these buildings. So these cells have to be descending, as in, again, there's another thermometer in here. And this is not 1, not 2. This could be 3 or higher. And the highest this can be is a 5. Because I've already got 7, 6, and 8 all placed. So that's the highest it can be. This can be a 4 or 5. This can be 3, 4. That's the only way this thermometer would work. Now, if this is a 5, I've broken the puzzle. Because that's not a 9, and that's not a 1. That's a 4, that's a 3. That's forced to be a 2. That's not a 2. That's got to be the 5, which is now fine because it's got a 9 directly beneath it. This is a very involved puzzle for sure. you can see 1s and 5s aligning. There is essentially 1 and 5 up here. And interestingly, no 9. So I can't place a 5 in row 1, again, because that would be the 9. So essentially, one of these is a 5, and then directly above it is a 1. It'd be lovely to figure out what is joining it, but I don't know if I can get that far just yet. Doesn't exactly help me with the 9s, by the way. I mean, I went on a total random path that has nothing to do with the question I was asking. It's just, as soon as I spotted this, I just had to sort of use it. Now, if you think about this 5 in particular, there's a lot of cells that I'm not going to be able to see. And can this even be a 9 anymore is a question that you want to ask. Because the maximum cells I can see would be 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't think this can be a 9. Yeah, it cannot be. So, not a 9. One of these is a 9, therefore. All of these are red. Still not enough, if I'm honest. Similar question for this 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, this can still be a 9, unfortunately. This 5 is solved. This 5 is solved. This 4 is solved. This 7 is solved. This 7 is solved. This 4, it sort of really depends on whether this is a 1 or not, because I think the 1 is going to be in here, and it'll be essentially the loose digit, the non-ascending part of the thermometer, so to speak. Now, the fact that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's a 9, 5, 1, 2. I mean, this doesn't have to be a visible cell, but it's just there isn't that many visible cells along row 1 anymore for that 5. So we're back to the 2. I think something that would be very helpful is if this is a 5 and that's a 9. That would be immensely helpful. It solves the 2, it solves the 5, world is in a good place. And then it gives me a 9 in here, and I start to sort of make progress. It's just, I don't think this has to be a 5. It's almost like I need to, maybe if I actually prove that this is the 5. And in fact, there isn't many places where the 5 can be anymore. Because the only places a 5 can be in row 1 is where a 9 can be. So it's only one of these 3 places that a 9 can be. And that can't be the 9, because that can't be a 5. So that's not a 9. That's the 9. Yeah, I should have used this more often. These are not 9s. These are not 9s. That's the 9. Therefore, that's the 5. We're getting somewhere now. I've used the 1 and 5 down here as a trick already. Where do we have 5s? 5s are none of these. 5s are one of these cells. If 5 is here, there would be a 1. If 5 is there, there could be a 9, or there could be a 1. Not helpful. 5, there's a 5 there. Not helpful, not helpful. Right, what can I do to determine which one is the 5 and which one is the 9? If that's a 5, what breaks? What would this be? So that would be 5. That would be 9. I would still have to place 1, 6, 7, and 8. That cannot be a 1. Because if that's a 1, whatever is here, so let me show you. If that's a 5, that's a 9. If that's a 1, I've broken the puzzle. Because whatever this digit is, it's going to be bigger than 1 and not 9, and therefore I would have more skyscraper clues than this. So this would have to be from 6 or 7 or 8, which is too big. That's the answer. Because if that's 6, then all I can see ahead of the 6 would be 6, 7, 8, 9. That's only 4 buildings. And I've broken the puzzle. Wow, that's hard. That's 5, that's 9, that's not 5, that's not 9. Now 9 is in one of these two cells, and 5 is in here as well. In fact, I don't think that can be a 5, because that can't be a 9, that can't be a 1. We've discussed that previously. Don't need to repeat myself. If that's a 5, that would have to be the 1. That's plausible. So I'm not going to eliminate that just yet. So 5 is in one of here, and either that's the 9. Can this be a 9? I think the answer to that is no. If that's a 9, that's saying that's a 5, and I've broken it, because I don't have a 9 beneath it. I can't, I've just placed a 9 above it, and I can't have a 1 above it. So that's not 9. That is 9. 9 is now one of these 3 cells, and I think I can actually now remove the red, which I'm sure is as frustrating for you guys as it was for me, because that's all the 9s pencil marked. I'm not entirely sure how helpful that was, but progress. 2, 3, 4, and an 8. 6, 7. Where is it in box 3? It's none of these cells. It's not in here. It's not these two. That's a 6, 7. That's now 1, 6, 7, 8. Forming a triplet. That cannot be an 8. That is the 8. That's 2, 3, 4, forming another triplet. That's a quadruple. There's essentially in here a 2, 3, 4, and a 5. I mean, how did I not see that 5? That's a 5. Unfortunately, because it has a 9 above it, beneath it, doesn't tell us that that's a 1. In fact, it isn't, because we've got 2, 3, and 4 in here. Got a 6, 7 pair. And essentially, I've got another 2, 3, 4, and a 1. 1 is in one of these two cells. In fact, I've sorted out this 5. I've sorted out this 5, this 5. You know, that 5 eventually. Whichever one it is, it has a 1 above it. This 5 is good, good, good. We have a 5 in here. No 9s beneath it. 1's above it. 5s. There's a 5 sort of quadruple in here. In one of these cells. And if it's in here, it would require a 1 above it. If it's in there, it would have a 9 beneath it. I mean, it can still have a 1 above it. So I'm not sure where the 5s are just yet. What more can I do, though? Let's see if I can just maybe use Sudoku. I tend to ignore it for far too long. Such as, what are these cells? I've got 1, 5, 6, 2, and 7. 2 is none of these. 7 is in one of these cells. Let's actually think about, now that this is a 5, I need 6, 7, 8, and 9. Kind of in that ascending order. That can't be an 8. That can't be a 7. So 7 and 8 are gone. That can't be a 7 we've established. In fact, it can't be an 8 either. So actually, just what can this cell be? It looks like it's going to be only 1 and 6, because it's not, it can be 1. Excuse me, undo. It can be 1. It's not 2, 3, 4, 5. It can be 6. Can't be 7, 8, or 9. So that's a 1, 6 pair. Then I have, yeah, a 7 because the remaining digits of 4, 8, 9 are all in the box. And then now I have 4, 8, 9. Except remember, they have to be in some sort of ascending order. The 8 cannot come after the 9. 8, I mean, take a look at that 3. 8 is too high. That would break it. So that's a 4. That's the 8. That's the 9. That's not a 9. That 8 gives me this 9, this 8, this 3 from that 4, that 2, that 4, that 3, that 2, that 4. Goodness, progress, finally. 3. That's a 1, 2, 4 triplet, isn't it? I'm going to say. Yeah, we've got 2 and 4. That's a 3. That's a 1, 2, 4 triplet. That's not a 1. One of these is a 1. Come back to that. And the 6, 7 pair. So what I wanted to do, once I remove the red, is to essentially mark which of these skyscrapers have I used. Goodness, we're at 30 minutes. That's done. This is partially done because I've only solved this 5, not this 5 yet. I've solved the 2. And I've solved the 5, so that's fully blue. These are fully blue. That's fully blue. Right. So I need to see 3 buildings after this 4. And I need to see 4 buildings. Actually, remember that 1. How did I get to a 1? Because of the 5, of course. I needed to have a 1 above it. That's not a 1. That's a 1. So that's essentially the descending or the non-ascending part of this thermometer. So I have an ascending run of digits with an interruption of a 1 in here. So from all these digits, where does 6 go? It's got to be the highest digit in this run. It's got to be in here. That can't be the 4. So essentially what I have is 2, 3, 4, and 1. Sorry. I meant to do this and a 1 in one of these 2 cells. That's not 4 or 3. Now, if that's the 2, I've broken the puzzle because that would be 2, that would be the 1, and then I cannot see 4 digits. It'll be 3, 6, and 9. So that has to be the 1. That cannot be the 1. Therefore, this has to be the 5. Remember, the 5 can only have a 1 above it. There is no 9 beneath it, which fixes probably the 5 to one of these 2 cells. Could still be here with a 9, or it can't be this cell because I can't have a 1 above it and I can't have a 9 beneath it because of these 2 9s. So that's not a 5. That is the 5. I can still have 1 and a 9 beneath it, so it doesn't give me a solution here. That's not the 5. That's the 5. That's the 1. That's the 6. Come on, let's solve this. 7, 6, 7. This is a 1, 8 pair. That's a 1. That's an 8. Is that 2, 4 solved? Not yet. There's a 3 for sure in here. That's not a 2. Remember, this now has to be ascending because we've already taken the descending number. So that's 2, 3, 3, 4. Not visible, visible, visible. Okay. The 3 is basically the last thing that we need to do. Actually, and this 5. What do we have in here? We need a 9. That's not the 9. That's the 9. And essentially, all of these buildings have to be visible. No, not all of them. I only have one more building that's visible in here. I have 2 and 6. And if I do them in any order, it's going to be fine. That's a shame. 2, 6. So I'd say this is solved. What else do we know? That's not a 7. In fact, what is this? Let's just finish it. We've got, is that 2, 6 again? Yes, but except this resolves it. That's a 2. That's a 6. That's a 2. That's a 6. We know what this digit is. It is 3. I need a 1 and a 7. That 3, 4 is incredibly not resolved still. I still need a 2. I need 2, 3, and 4. That's the 3. That's a 2, 4 pair. In fact, that's the 4. That's the 2. Which gives me the 3 and the 4. I have a 2, 4, and a 6. That's 6 tells me the order. That's a 6 with a 2, 4. That's a 2. That's a 4. 2, 4, 3, 2. May as well just check this 5 is doing well. So that's 1, 2, 3. There's an 8. Yeah. 4, 5 buildings visible. That's all of them correct. And if I've not made any mistakes, that's the 7 and solution to today's puzzle. What a phenomenal puzzle. Solve counter of 47. I mean, it deserves more, but at the same time, it is a difficult puzzle. There's no doubt about it. But it's an absolutely phenomenal puzzle, GoodCity. Thank you so much for creating it and sharing it with everyone. And Flinty, I guess, thank you very much for the variant, and it's nice to see others adopt it as well. Hope that you guys enjoyed the puzzle, and I think it's probably your well wishes and good lucks that allow me to solve it. And see you back for the next video. Bye-bye for now.